Welcome to the 30th episode of Impact Media Presents. I'm Kelly Redmond, your host and executive director of Impact Media and Entertainment Coalition. This is a very special week. On Monday, the 24th, we celebrated our 7th year as a nonprofit 501c3 organization. And wow, have we had a week of very impactful and important events happening. All week, we've been celebrating the 57th commemoration of the March on Washington, where Dr. King gave his landmark I Have a Dream speech. Today is the official day of the march, and there was an incredible virtual march yesterday and last night, and then we were live in DC today, and there are all kinds of activities and events and virtual events happening throughout the day and the evening, and we'll share more about those a little later. And then today, we are also commemorating the 65th anniversary of the brutal killing of Emmett Till. And then, additionally, we are just a few days away from the 15th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. All of these events in our history are very important and symbolic of what needs to happen and what we need to do differently. And today, on our 5th series of Where Do We Go From Here? National Women Leaders, we are going to discuss solutions and providing options of where we can, as individuals, fit in to support the great work that is existing and has been going on for decades. So I am so excited to announce and to welcome our special guest. We have Dr. Janetta B. Cole, who is the president and national chair of the National Council of Negro Women, and the executive director, attorney Janice Mathis. I welcome both of you today. Hi, Dr. Cole. How are you?
I am full of joy because
Yes.
I am reconnecting with you, my sister, so many
Oh,
since we were together in Atlanta.
yes, yes. It's such a blessing to see you and to have followed you over these years, because after Spelman and then Bennett and then all the amazing things you're doing, you've been a role model for over half of my life. And it's truly a blessing to be with you here today. You and our soror, Janice. I'm going to bring Janice in for a minute right now. Janice?
Good afternoon, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing great, soror. Welcome. Thank you so much. Matter of fact, I brought a little, you can't see it on the camera on me, but yeah, we got to throw it up. Janice, we
Throw
got
it
you
up.
virtually.
No, she's driving. Don't throw it up.
Right. Don't throw it up yet. But we do have the sorors tuning in as well, along with all of the incredible women of National Council of Negro Women. As I told you off screen, I've got my black on for Emmett Till. I see you both have your black and white on as they instructed, but I had to put on some purple for NCNW as one of your newest members this morning. And part of the View Park section in Los Angeles. And so glad to formally, be a part of this work. When we started this series, we talked about it was really important to connect with our legacy organizations who have been doing this work, some for centuries or almost centuries, and others very close to that. And it's just really important that we connect with you. You have the road map, you have the playbook, and we need to work with you as well as, the other newer organizations that are coming up, like a Black Lives Matter and Color of Change and other organizations that are doing great work. So Janice, Dr. Cole and I know you are stuck in March on Washington traffic, and we are not mad at you. We appreciate you for being in the trenches there in DC.
Well, I apologize for not being in place, but it was difficult to anticipate. But first, let me say to you, Kelly, when you talk about solutions, one of the solutions that we need is a place where we can tell our stories and
Absolutely.
share our truth. And so I want to thank you for bringing Impact Media to life. And this series that you're doing is so much needed, and I'm sure it's doing our community a lot of good. So thank you for that.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
not really in a position, I'm a danger to myself and others over here on K Street, trying to get out of the traffic and hoping the police don't notice that I have my phone in my hand. So I had better sign off now, but I'll be listening for
Yes.
what I know will be a wonderful interview. And we encourage everyone to visit ncnw.org and see what we're up to now. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely. And how can people follow you personally, Janice, on social media?
At Mathis NCNW. At Mathis NCNW.
Thank you so much. We know this is just the beginning, so we
Dr.
will have
T.
you back.
Talk to
I'm
you soon.
sending you my best. Be
Yes.
safe, my sister
Yes.
Edie. Be
All right.
safe. Your spirit will be.
Yes. Thank you so much, Janice. Yes. You know, this, as we talked about backstage, you just never know what we're going to experience these days. And I'm just so grateful to her. She's been just a joy to get to know and to work with. And we're very excited about, you know, how we're going to partner moving forward. So thank you both for your support and the support of all of NCNW, from the headquarters to all the sections across the country who are tuning in and doing the work, the hard work, and have been in the trenches. So would love to hear from you, Dr. Cole, how you're doing. You know, it's been an interesting 5 months or so. How are you doing in quarantine and going through storms? You were just, you know, having to deal with that earlier in the week when we rescheduled. How are you?
I am doing, I think, amazingly well, given, my sister, that like you, like sisters and brothers around our country, I am living in the middle of multiple pandemics.
Yes.
We all so afraid of this horrific virus.
Yes.
That we know disproportionately affects our people. We're also in the middle of an economic crisis,
Yes.
which is, of course, one of the outcomes of the pandemic. And then we as Black people, and certainly as any people of good conscience, are in this third pandemic. We can trace its first appearance to 401 years ago, when we as a people were enslaved and brought to what is now the United States.
Yes.
The effects of this resurgence now of a form of Jim Crow systemic racism is just almost beyond description.
Yes.
And I will say, Sister Kelly, that today, as we remember a 14-year-old boy so brutally murdered,
Yes.
because it is said he offended a white woman, Emmett Till.
Yes.
And I raise that name because
Absolutely.
at this moment, the March on Washington is taking place, where a signature line is, "Get your knee off of my neck."
Yes.
And this connection between the brutality that has been experienced by our people, including lynching, when those ropes went to our necks,
Yes.
to this moment of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and now most recently, Jacob Blake.
Yes.
But in the middle of all of that, we have no choice but to keep the faith. And as my sister Edie knows, we have come to know and love each other quite deeply.
Yes.
I often turn to the continent of Africa for wisdom and to those
Yes.
proverbs. And one of them says, pray with your feet.
Yes.
So I'm doing fairly well despite these pandemics because I'm praying with my feet,
Yes.
which means I'm continuing to pray and to meditate, but I'm also doing the work.
So important. So important. I literally had a conversation earlier today with a friend who's, really in tune with what needs to happen, is doing quite a bit. But he was challenging me and saying that I needed to stay more in touch with what's happening in the news and watching the other convention. And I said, everybody has their assignment and their post, and you need to know who you are and what your assignment is. I said, that's not my assignment. He said, well, things are different. I said, no, we are dealing with the same issues that we've always dealt with. I don't need any more motivation. I don't need to know any more details about what has happened and to be more motivated to do what I do and to work harder at what I know my assignment is. And I said, part of my assignment, I believe, is to motivate others to move away from being caught up in the distraction of what everybody else is doing, instead of getting on our post and doing what we need to do individually and collectively. And so I said, I understand, where I'm supposed to be. And that is to motivate those, and to everyone, but especially those, because we have more resources at our fingertips than we've had, from the civil rights movement with Dr. King and, prior to that. And to have more resources, but not have more engagement and the full utilization of all the resources that we have, I feel that that's the real challenge of where we are today. And another to go on the list of pandemics that we are experiencing right now. So that is the purpose of what's guiding me to facilitate, using these platforms for change and encouraging others. Don't give time and attention and PR to the other side, and don't be distracted by that. This is a time to focus inward, to strategize, and to begin to move forward and praying with our feet, as you said. So thank you so much for saying that.
Kelly, I fully agree with what you said, but with this caveat, when we look at the recent and ongoing protests in our country, and I know you joined with me and my sister Edie as she tries to get safely out of where she is. We can only move forward when we remember to protest peacefully.
Oh, absolutely.
But the point I want to make is that during this period of time, there are more Americans engaged in the call for social justice than at any other time in our nation's history. The figure is at somewhere, and I know this is a big range here, but between 25 and 30 million Americans of all hues, religions, genders, sexual orientations, ages, are out there saying enough is enough. Get your knee off of the necks of Black people, brown people, anyone who is oppressed. And so I think you and I are in agreement.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a duality here that is required of us, because you're most effective out there when you are first centered yourself.
Yes.
And that's where whatever is your practice, praying, meditating, simply saying, let me be centered.
Yes.
You are more effective as an activist when you have that practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that leads into kind of what we wanted to talk about next. You know, we know that you've been engaged in this work and committed to this, for a lifetime. And I would just love to hear, we start all of our interviews off asking, we start with why. So would love to hear from you directly why you do this work and have been committed to what you've done over the course of your life and career.
The answer is I had no choice.
Yes.
First of all, the good Lord, she brought me into this world
Yes.
in the middle of the Jim Crow era,
Mm-hmm.
in those truly wretched days of legal racial discrimination.
Yes.
I was born 40 miles north of where my husband and I live right now. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And as we used to say when I was growing up, y'all can call it Northern Florida if you want to. We call it Southern Georgia.
Mm.
I still remember that night when a group of white men that I would now call vigilantes stopped me and my father on a very isolated road in the darkness of night.
Mm.
And I am convinced to this very day that while they had the truck and the Confederate flag and the rifle, somebody in that group was a Mason. And my father, I guess, reaching for anything to save our lives, went to that Masonic order. I still remember the night the phone call came and said, if you don't get so-and-so out of your house, the Klan will be there. So I grew up in those circumstances. And I grew up simultaneously in a family, in a community that said, this cannot be forever.
Yes.
And we have a role to play in how long it lasts. So I grew up with a great-grandfather and a grandfather and a grandma and a great-grandma and parents and my Brownie leader and my Girl Scout leader and Miss Vance, my first grade teacher, and Miss Bradham, the librarian, all telling me that I had to do two things. I had to get a good education. That would help me to better understand the world and understand myself. But I also had to use that education to understand how I could be an effective activist for social change. I'd seen my parents do it. I'd seen my community leaders, including my religious leaders, do it. And so from the day that I went off to Fisk University as a 15-year-old kid, I knew that I too had to be a part of sitting in and praying in and marching and demanding what is our right.
Yes. Thank you for that. And, as you mentioned earlier, having the opportunity to, partner with you from the vantage point of the mayor's office while you were at Spelman College and the amazing work that you did there, and then on to Bennett and now at NCNW, just been such and so many other things that you've done. That's just a few. And now, sitting, where you are at NCNW, carrying on the work, of Mary McLeod Bethune and our soror Dr. Dorothy Height. How does that feel? And tell us a little bit about kind of where you are and how you're moving the organization forward for a time such as this.
For such a time as this. Well,
Yes.
First of all, my soror, my sister, I have to tell you that I have been exceedingly fortunate. The only appropriate word is blessed in my lifetime.
Yes.
Because while I describe those folk who grew me up in Jacksonville, Florida, what I didn't share with you is that through my great-grandfather, I had the privilege of knowing the legendary Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune.
Wow.
My great-grandfather, whose name was Abraham Lincoln,
Wow.
Lewis, like so many Black men of his era, was a very, very, very close friend of Dr. Bethune's. She is the one who did the eulogy at his funeral in 1947. She sat on the board of the Afro-American Life Insurance Company that he and other 6 Black men founded. He sat on the board of Bethune-Cookman and was a major donor to that college. And so because of their relationship, my mother, our soror, Mary Frances Lewis Betch, would put me and my sister in the back seat of the car and drive from Jacksonville to Daytona Beach to Bethune-Cookman. Because her 2 close buddies, 2 sorors, were at Bethune-Cookman. I can call their names: Martha Burl, who was a librarian, Marion Spate, who taught French and Spanish. When we arrived on campus, if Dr. Bethune was on campus and had just a little bit of time, in my community where I grew up, we would say, "T90 bits of time, itsy bitsy time."
Yes.
My sister and I would literally have the honor of going into her office.
Yes.
And just in the way that she did with all young people, we would be mentored. We would be embraced with her wisdom and her love.
Yes.
Her love particularly of young people. So let me just say that would have been enough. But then, like you, and like our sister E.D., who we hope is getting someplace safe right now.
Yes, we do.
The 3 of us have had the almost, well, let me just say this, the amazing and grace-filled honor of knowing the woman that President Obama called the godmother of the civil rights movement.
Yes.
The iconic leader of NCNW, Dr. Dorothy Irene Height.
Yes.
So 2 years ago, when I dared to put myself up for election to the position of 7th President, Chair of the Board of NCNW, I made that decision having made a promise to two women, to sheroes up in glory,
Yes.
Doctors Bethune and Height. And so when I walk into our headquarters in DC, if there isn't a pandemic, when I walked is the better language into our headquarters, the only building, Kelly, between the White House and the Capitol owned by Black people.
Yes.
Be specific, owned
Yes.
by Black women.
Yes.
And I walk into Dr. Height's office, it's enough to take you to your knees.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was amazing that I had a chance to experience that in my late 20s when I was living in Atlanta, and to be able to shadow her for a day, to go and spend some time with her at the office, and then go to a gala function with her in DC. And it's almost like a dream. Like, did it really happen, or was that a dream? Because I don't have, we weren't living in the age where we had cameras as readily. I'm sure there were some, but even then I stayed in the moment. It wasn't about trying to get a picture, but just really being present in the moment. And just to have her, like you said, she didn't have to say anything. Just the fact that she took time and allowed me to be, in her presence and to see her in action was just, incredible. And I know she poured some very specific messages into me that are with me and just buried within and have become a part of me. And so grateful. And so it is a great pleasure to reconnect with NCNW today, officially as one of the newest members of late. And so glad to join you officially and more formally in the work, that you're doing.
Thank you.
So
Kelly,
what's our assignment?
I do want to do just one little insert here because of something you said, because it's so meaningful, something you said. Alice Walker, one of our, of course, most powerful women of the word that takes the form of her writing, did a short essay that I remember reading. And what she said was, we need to be careful when we travel and we get ourselves behind a camera and we're so engaged in capturing the picture that we forget to focus on what the picture is about.
Yes.
And I understand, for young'uns, for that generation, these cell phones are like an extension of their hands.
Yes.
And taking the photographs, it's just a part of the way that they move through the world. But I so affirm and treasure the way you say, you don't have photographs of that interaction with Dr. Height. But that experience is unforgettable. Now, on the other hand, and this connects us back to our conversation, without those cell phones that captured these recent brutal acts against Black men and women, we wouldn't have the evidence that we have now, leading to the justice we are calling for on this very day.
Absolutely. And it's also important to capture and preserve, our history and the good and positive experiences, that we have, which is part of also why, I formed Impact Media, so that we can tell our true stories and those positive stories that will uplift and motivate and encourage by giving access to those who may not have the direct access to a Dr. Janetta Cole or a Dr. Dorothy Height or a attorney ED Janice Mathis, but that can have access through the mediums of entertainment or media, because it all makes a difference. I was inspired by watching the story of Marva Collins on, like, it
That
was a
great
made for
educator.
television. Yes. And her story, when I watched that
Mhm.
show, it told me and showed me that the power of one person making a difference. And when you know your calling and you're true to it and stay focused, that, there's, when people say what you can't do, God will show you what you can when you stay focused on it. And
Exactly.
so I know if that could move me, and I had positive role models around me, but the way it was delivered in that medium and how it affected me and impacted me, I know that I needed to be a part of using the medium to change lives in that way as well.
I really appreciated the way that my sister ED Al-Sora
Yes.
lifted you up at the beginning of the program and the work that you do. And I'm sitting here thinking of yet another African proverb, because it really explains the power of your work, Kelly. It says, until the story of the hunt
Mm.
is told by the lion,
Mm.
and I add, and lioness, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.
Mm-hmm.
We must
Yes.
tell our own stories,
Yes.
because we're the ones who have starred in these stories.
Yes.
We're the ones who have experienced, yes, those moments of triumph, but also those years of experiences of tribulation.
Absolutely.
So the work that you do is just absolutely critical for such a time as this.
No, thank you. So how can we support the work of NCNW? And I mean the collective we of anyone viewing, across the globe through this medium. And
Exactly.
we're going to continue to share and try to engage more. And all the members of NCNW that are tuning in, and me, I want an assignment. What can we do? How can we support
Mhm.
you and Janice in this most critical work at this time?
Mm. Well, thank you for this opportunity to lift up what is the work of NCNW and how we would welcome every woman of African descent to become a member.
Yes.
And let me slip this in, how the Charles L. Franklin Associates would welcome Black men
Yes.
to that wing of NCNW. So let me just take a minute to say first that NCNW, as you, one of our newest members, knows, and you could recite it better than I, was imagined by Dr. Bethune to be an organization of organizations.
Mm.
And that is what we are. 85
Yes.
years since she founded us.
Yes.
That means that we are over 2 million women, but in this enormous circle of Black womanhood are 32 affiliate organizations. Our sorority,
Yes.
the AKAs, the Zetas, Sigma Gamma Rho, organizations like Top Ladies of Distinction, organizations like the Links, all under this single, or better put, in this single circle.
Yes.
And then, of course, we are located geographically into sections and on college and university campuses. Now, that's a lot of Black woman power.
Yes, it is.
But you know what? It isn't enough.
Right.
And so we are constantly looking for, encouraging more members. And they can be truly young. They can be young adults. They can be all the way to the seasoned. I mean, truly seasoned,
Yes.
like myself. One of the things that I so admire about our organization is that while we encourage, promote education, getting college degrees, getting postgraduate degrees, we do not require that of our members. All that we require is that you fall in love with our mission.
Yes.
To empower Black women, our families, and our communities. During the last 2 years, I am so pleased to say that something that I urged and called for when I ran for the leadership role is we are becoming far more intergenerational.
Mm-hmm.
And we even have language that we like to use. We say we have our roots, that's folk like myself, and we have our wings. Those are folk like yourself, Kelly. And that we cannot be the organization we need to be without roots that tell us where we have been and give us that kind of stability, and wings that have the adventurous spirit to help us fly into new spaces. NCNW has what we call 4 foci. Let me just stop a minute to do a little praise song for all of my predecessors. Mm-hmm. Of course, beginning with Dr. Bethune and coming to the most immediate sister president of NCNW, and that is Ingrid Saunders Jones.
Wow, another Atlanta powerhouse dynamo.
Company. Under her years, or during her years, our 4 foci really became very solid as guideposts for our work very quickly. 1, no surprise, education.
Yes.
But with a focus on STEAM. Now, most folk know about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yes.
NCNW puts the A in there.
That's right.
Secondly, that which has to do with our finances and our economic stability. And so financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and I have to take just a moment to say that our sister ED, who I call the webinar queen, does a series of webinars urging African American women and others who may listen in to deepen their skills, broaden their ability in the realm of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Thirdly, our health. And we, no surprise, of course, we focus on health disparities that African American women experience.
Yes.
Beginning with the way that our roles when we decide and want to be mothers are so challenged disproportionately.
Yes.
Why should Black women die in childbirth more often than white women? Why should Black women, our children, and our whole communities suffer from all of these diseases disproportionately to white folk. And you know the old saying, when white folks got a cold, black folk got walking pneumonia.
Yep.
And of course, we are experiencing that
That's a
with the
shame.
disproportionate illness and death from this virus.
Yes.
Fourth and finally, though, NCNW focuses work on public policy and civic engagement.
Yes.
And while I am so in partnership with Sister ED on all of this work, this is another area of particular strength for her. You know, coming out of her particular activism in the civil rights and women's rights movement, Janice L. Mathis knows public policy, and she knows the importance of our being as a people, and yes, as women, engaged in civic activity.
Yeah.
Right now, NCNW is focused like a laser beam on the census
Yes.
and on voting.
Yes.
If we aren't counted, we don't count.
Right.
And we don't get what is ours.
Yes.
Whether it's improved schools, better roads, better hospitals, we don't get the representation in Congress that we need, all based on the census.
Yes.
And Black folk, we know we are one of the communities that is disproportionately undercounted. And then there's the vote.
Yes.
What can we say other than the truth?
Yes.
Our lives depend on it.
Absolutely.
Literally, our lives depend on it. You care about the brutality, the violence by some police, that you got to vote because there's a connection there. You care about disparities in the health of Black folk, including Black women in particular, then you gotta vote. There's a connection there.
Have to.
You're worried about education in our country? That today our schools are more segregated than at any other time. With who is getting the least attention? We are, because the resources are based on the zip code.
Yes.
Vote. We have no choice. We got to vote.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Cole. You know, we will be continuing. And as I mentioned earlier, backstage, we're going to have Janice come back, our sister ED come back to dig into more, of the strategy and the tactics and, what we can do to engage people more in depth in the work of NCNW. But you did a beautiful job of explaining what the focus areas are and where you need the help. And we know that a lot of everyone watching can tap into one of those 4 areas. And we encourage you to get involved and support and plug in directly through the affiliate organizations that are a part of. And I'm glad you mentioned that the men have a place in the space, because right after I joined, I posted the confirmation email and encouraged the men that they could join too.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So we want everyone, we need all hands on deck here. So thank you so much.
One thing I do want to say, and that is that in addition to the 32 affiliates, NCNW is so fortunate to partner with all of the civil rights organizations,
Yes.
national civil rights organizations.
Yes.
We are in lockstep with the NAACP, with the
Yeah.
NAACP Legal Defense Fund, with the Urban League.
Yes.
We are very, very close to certain women's organizations. And I lift up the name of our sister Melanie Campbell,
Yes.
who organization
Yes.
so connected to. You know, that African proverb again. If you want to go fast, go alone.
Yes.
If you want to go far, go together. And so we are now, particularly in this period around the census,
Yes.
in very, very close partnership with Fair Count.
Yes.
When my Spelman sister, Stacey Abrams,
Yes.
was robbed of the
Yes.
dealership,
Yes.
broad open
It's
daylight,
criminal.
it was a robbery, okay?
Yes.
She did not miss a beat
No.
in founding two organizations. Fair Fight, to fight voter suppression, Fair Count, to fight to make sure that all of us are counted in the census. NCNW is in a very close partnership with Fair Count,
Yes.
and our partnership is called Sisters Count.
Yes.
We know that Black women, if we decide to do something, you can't stop us.
It gets done.
If we decide we're going to be counted, we will bring our whole families.
Yes.
We will bring those folk who aren't blood kin, but we call them kinfolk anyway,
Yes.
to understand the centrality of being counted. We are in close partnership with our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama,
Yes.
in her organized way to get us to vote.
Yes.
We are also in partnership with what our sister Oprah Winfrey is doing with her Own Your Vote.
Yes.
And so we can't have too many partnerships. We really can't. As
Yes.
long as we have the engagement of a membership to do the work of partnering.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for going into that. And that was definitely one of the questions. I see that our chat, we've got quite a few of our sisters from NCNW and sorors who are chiming in. We've got someone, Don L. live from New York, and our soror and member of NCNW, Terry Scope Rogers, who worked with me in the mayor's office in Atlanta, and Liz Newkirk, proud Charlotte NCNW member, Lauren Reese Johnson, proud Indianapolis section member, and NSPDK, Latanya Johnson, who went to my alma mater at Drake University, and she's in live from South Carolina, and Lauren Reese Johnson, Roots and Wings, she says, I love it. Gina Jackson, love Dr. Cole, brilliant NCNW. We are in excellent hands. And Gina Jackson, we are in excellent hands. So, and Gina is a Sigma Gamma Rho, one of our Divine Nine sisters. So I had to give you those shout outs, Dr. Cole.
Thank you. And I'm giving a virtual hug to all of these sisters who are in that chat room.
Yes. And we're getting close to our time. I really do want to hear a little bit more about some of the work that you're doing outside of NCNW, because you have tentacles into lots of things. And I am particularly interested as equity, diversity, and inclusion professional to learn more about the work that you're doing in that space and with your IDEA movement that you're starting, that I also signed up for once I learned that you could last night. So please tell us more about that and how we can be involved and supportive of that.
Well, it all started when a very special sister friend called me up one day. Her name is Candy Castleberry Singleton.
Oh, I know Candy. Yes. We worked closely when I was in the American Hospital Association. I was the number 2 at the Institute for Diversity in Health Management, the affiliate of the American Hospital Association.
So
yes.
You know Candy. Well, Candy,
yes, I do.
Yeah. And we've known each other for many, many years, going back in particular to my years at Bennett, when we organized something called the Johnetta B. Cole Global Diversity and Inclusion Institute. So Candy called and she said, Dr. C, it would be so special if you and I could do a fireside chat with a number of CDOs, Chief Diversity Officers around the country, many of whom would come to those institute gatherings at Bennett. So I said, of course, and we did. And some of these more than righteous sisters and brothers, like Sheila Robinson, who heads Diversity Woman, Deb Daggett, who is deeply into the disability community, Eric Watson, who used to work at, who will forever work in DEA&I or IDEA, but is in North Carolina. Of course, Mary Frances Winters of the Winters Group. Colleagues like that came together with this new means by which we communicate. And we had a virtual fireside chat. And towards the end, I said to my colleagues, all of whom are far younger than I said, as I listen to you and as I listen to my own heart, I have the feeling that you need to be speaking up and speaking out.
Yes.
You have been in this space calling for greater inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility for years. And now that a number of people are saying, including in the corporate world, in healthcare systems, in higher ed, are saying that they guess there really is something called systemic racism. Said I to my younger colleagues, you've been in this space. You've got something to say to these corporate heads. And so that is how the idea began, that we would do an open letter to America's corporate leaders.
Yes.
And I don't mean disrespect, but I do mean what I say. It is a letter that says, say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yes.
If you as corporate leaders are now admitting systemic racism, including in your own workplaces, then here's some things we've been saying to you.
Yes.
Listen and begin to do the work. Once we did the open letter, those of us who had been meeting, we opened it up for other IDEA&I professionals to sign the letter. Many, many, many folks did.
Yes.
And then we said, this is an era in our world where if you aren't in the media, you aren't. And so we were fortunate working with a very, very skilled professional media sister. Sister Martine got us on CNN. I mean, that's how it all happened.
Yes.
And that particular action continues as more and more people sign on to that open letter. You know, my Sarah, the one place where American people come together the most in a diverse way is the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we can't figure out how to get greater inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility in the workplace, I don't know what we're going to do. This is not to minimize other places that are more like recreation or like religious organizations. But people, when they are able to go to work,
Yes.
and our workplaces have been for years places of such discomfort for
Yes.
Black people.
And that's an understatement.
We talk about having to leave
Yes.
at the door the fullness of ourselves,
Yes.
having to, this goes so way back to Frantz Fanon, that classic work. We put on the mask, we walk in, and then when we finally get to the end of the day, on the way home, we can take off the mask and be who we are.
Yes.
So that's a pretty long way of saying that we have simply got to transform the workplaces in America.
Absolutely. And I was so excited to see that work and to recently become a part by signing on to the open letter and willing to do whatever I can to support that movement as well. I'd also like to lift up another group that I'm a part of. It's a newly formed group called The Collective, made up of, have you heard about Pepper Miller and Glenda Gill and many others who are also having a similar approach and tactic of challenging corporate America with a letter around the most important steps and the things that we need, again, to live up to the promise and that diversity statement that is made around culture and what's important and the company values around diversity, to really hold them accountable to living up to that. And I'm really excited to be a part of that. I also am excited to hear just earlier this year, even prior to COVID, prior to George Floyd, a company based out of Minneapolis called Infinity Systems created a new benchmarking tool, Black-owned company, that we featured here on Impact Media Presents. The founder created this benchmarking tool, evidence-based, worked with university partners to develop this, that gives companies a baseline read on where they are in their efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then they know their strengths and their areas of weakness, so they know where to focus, what's working, and what needs to change, where they need to add. And it's called Equimetrics. And I'll definitely follow up.
Please, I was going for a pen to write it down.
Yes, I will follow up.
If you could follow up with that.
Yes, definitely.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So there's, as we talked about the pandemics, there's opportunities that have come out as a result of what's happened. And thank you for being a part of encouraging everyone that in the midst of all that's going on, we have to pray with our feet and continue to move and continue the work and the good work that has been established, and create some new strategies and ideas and tactics that fit into some of those overarching buckets that we know are really critical today they've been critical for decades for, our people.
Mhm.
So in closing, is there anything you'd like to share? Are you involved in any more March on Washington activities today, or?
Well, I want to do something that really involves a bit of a confession,
Okay.
but I think it's a good way to end. But before that, if I could just put in one little plug, because I know Sister
Sure.
ED would want to do this.
Yes.
We feel very strongly at NCNW that we have to be building our own future.
Yes.
That spoke much younger than myself.
Yes.
And we know that young people have got to vote. And so we have come up with a major program called Adulting 101. Because when
Yes.
these folk of a certain age decide they're going to, act like adults,
Yes.
they do amazing things.
Yes.
This is
Absolutely.
a program, a project that will involve our working with students at HBCUs, beginning with Cheney and Wilberforce, to help them make that intimate connection between what they need, between their future on the one hand, and going into the polls to vote.
Yes. Yes.
I just wanted, as I was thinking about Sister ED, because this is a project that came straight
Yes.
out of her head and her heart, and I wanted to put it out there. So my closing comments. This morning, when my husband and I were struggling with this problem of connectivity and we couldn't get the TV to work again, we've been not well connected all week in the area that we live. But we finally got a little bit of time with the TV working. And we were watching the news, and I said to my hubby, I said, JD, it just worries me to see our young'uns and not so young'uns at this march. We've got to call for justice, but I'm so concerned about the health of folk who are not social distancing and not wearing masks. Well, just before we came here, where we knew we could have good connectivity, I did turn on the TV again, and it was this time working again. There was Reverend Barber. There was that mighty force that organized the People's March.
Yes.
That'll be a part of the virtual march tonight.
Yes.
And the CNN commentator said, Reverend Barber, aren't you worried about all the folk who are at the march? Many of whom have on masks, some don't, but there's no social distancing. Here's what Reverend Barber said, and it just turned me around on this. He said, yes, I'm worried. And I say again, I'm worried. He said, but what is it we need to learn from this? We need to learn that the people you see out at that march are hurting so deeply, are so outraged by the absence of justice that they are putting themselves into those places of potential danger. And so I end that way only to say we are in a crisis.
Yes, we are.
It's not the first one, though. And the lessons we need to learn from the past are tried and true. the hope we have for the future is in these young'uns,
Yes.
young people. Black Lives Matter,
Yes.
color of change,
Yes.
organizing and moving us, I hope, from protesting into policy making.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. You know, my mother, thank you for that special note and helping us all understand, because there's definitely a feel like, oh my goodness, we're concerned about those who are out there marching and then putting themselves at risk in an even more pronounced way as a result, of COVID. And I was talking about it with my mother today, and she said, and I agreed with her wholeheartedly. She said, and she said, I've been praying for everybody the past couple of days, and I've been concerned. I've even been fearful. She said, but I also, on the other hand, I cannot thank them enough for being out there and doing what they're doing, because I can't be there. And I have the same sentiment as well. So we are grateful, and we do give honor and tribute to each and every individual that is in DC right now and was there for the 57th commemoration of the March on Washington and all of the celebrations that are happening across the country. Impact Media is a partner and a sponsor of the LA March. And later this evening, I'm blessed to give tribute to my dear mentor, C.T. Vivian, at our virtual town hall in partnership with SCLC Southern California and many other organizations across LA. And we're even going to have a virtual after party with the DJ, one of the best out of Chicago, Dr. Cole. If you and the NCNW want to have some fun, I've got somebody who can make you feel good. That joy that you talked about. With some good music and some chair dancing, or you can stand up and dance, whatever you want to need. That music, a combination of that backyard music, the soul music, the movement. I mean, that just makes you feel good. It's so important during these times that we stay, connected to each other and stay connected to our culture. When we can't connect directly, with each other, and to use these virtual platforms, when we can and how we can, until we can all get together the way that we want to, in a safe and secure way. So I can't tell you how much this means to me to have you and our sister ED Janice with me today. And again, we are going to continue these conversations. And it's not just about a conversation, it's strategic conversations about where we need to go and what we need to do and how we can all plug into the work. The protests are important, and we need those who can do that. And we need everybody's strengths and everybody's gifts, and everybody praying with their feet, as you said.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And I want to give my thank you again. It comes absolutely from my heart. I know that this conversation was to be.
Yeah.
We had to postpone it. We then had the challenge of Sister ED and the traffic, but it was to be, and it was.
Yes, it was.
And I so look forward to all of the sisters out there who are not members of NCNW.
Yes.
We're going to join you,
my
Sorah, my sister, in being a member.
Yes.
We each can do things individually, but we are far more effective and powerful.
Yes.
We are in an organized way.
Yes.
So, peace and blessings to you, Kelly.
Peace and blessings to you.
For this opportunity.
No, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our viewers. We are so grateful for you. And again, tune in to the March on Washington. If you can't find another celebration, go to the Southern California SCLC Southern California on Facebook, and there'll be lots of activities for you to participate in. So just stay tuned, Dr. Cole, but we will end this broadcast. Enjoy the day and the weekend celebrating what's good and real about our people and about our culture. And let's keep up the fight and hold everyone else hold them accountable to the promise. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.